Shalom Aleichem everyone, hope everyone is doing well. It is Erev Shabbos Parshas Pekudei. And one of the questions is always asked when it comes to these two parshas, Vayakel and Pekudei, which are often read together. This year we read them separately because it's a leap year, but is it really necessary for the Torah to go over again and again and again the Klei HaMishkan over here? Indeed, when we learned Truma and Tetzaveh, so there we're given the command, this is how you're supposed to build each and every one of the kelim, the shulchan like this, the menorah like this, and all of the details. Then comes along Vayakel Pekudei, and you have the execution, okay, and the menorah was built correctly like this, and the shulchan was built correctly like this. When it comes to the kelim of the Mishkan, the big day kahuna, it seems to be very, very redundant, and of course, the Torah doesn't have extra words, so why is it necessary to go through all of these details once again? And indeed, if you look at Rashi in this week's parsha, you'll notice it's a pretty easy parsha to go through with Rashi because it's all Chumash and very, very little Rashi, because Rashi has covered everything in Parshas Truma and in Parshas Tetzaveh. So I think, certainly in this week's parsha, Parshas Pekudei, I think the answer becomes very, very clear, and perhaps it puts the entire Sefer Shmos, into a certain context. There is a terminology that is repeated in this week's parsha over and over and over again. We are told that Bnei Yisrael went ahead and they built the various aspects of the Mishkan, and they built the various aspects of the Big Day Kahuna, and the theme that it repeats over and over and over again is Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe. Exactly as it was commanded by Hashem to Moshe. Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe. Over and over and over again, at least 18 times. You have that formulation, a formulation similar to it, and that seems to be a very, very dominant kind of theme. And that would really highlight and perhaps elucidate, when you look at the entire Sefer Shmos in its totality, so you'll find that the second half of the Sefer, from basically Parshas Truma to the end, is all involved in Binyan HaMishkan. Truma Tetzaveh, a little break in Kisisa, Vayakel, Pekudei is all Binyan HaMishkan, the Kelim, and the Big Day Kahuna. And here we have the execution. Pekudei, Kasher Tziva, Hashem es Moshe. Over and over and over again. And I believe, and I think this is the Pshuto Shal Mikra, this formulation is clearly, and the Mishkan is clearly, as many Rishonim point out, is a tikkun, a kapara, an antidote to, number one, is the Chet of Klal Yisrael, the Egel Hazav. Is what was the Egel Hazav? The Egel Hazav was taking this molten image, this physical image of, that was supposed to be, in lieu of Moshe Rabbeinu, this kind of physical image as a liaison to Hashem, and it was 100% asur, to the point that Moshe smashes the luchos, and Hashem wants to start from scratch all over again with Moshe Rabbeinu. Then on the heels of that, you have the command of the Mishkan. So the Mishkan, again, according to many Mefarshim, the Mishkan was, in a certain sense, a concession to Klal Yisrael. The Mishkan also has molten images, the Kruvim, and various physical embodiments of vehicles to reach Hashem. But this is 100% appropriate, 100% fine. And what's the fundamental difference between Egel Hazav, which even if we assume was L'Shem Shamayim, Bnei Yisrael needed that go-between, that mediator between them and Hashem. It was Moshe tarried, so they created the Egel Hazav. Yeah, there's one fundamental difference. And the fundamental difference is, the Egel Hazav was not commanded. It was done on our own. And here the Mishkan is Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe. And that's the refrain. And sometimes, is what the Baal Shem Tov points out, sometimes we overcomplicate things. We're looking for deep kavanos. We're looking for great, great spirituality, and sometimes we miss the point. You know what the point of tefillin is? Yeah, there are kavanos. There is spirituality, but the mitzvah, the tzivui Hashem, fundamentally, is perhaps the highest level of spirituality. Tzitzis, the tzivui Hashem, and fulfilling the will of Hashem. That's ultimately what it's all about, and we have to take solace in that. Sometimes the deeper kavanos we have difficulty to connect to. Just the core and basic relationship with Hashem that is fundamental. In a few weeks' time, Parsha Shmini, we will read about, again, the Avera of Nadav and Avihu, that they went ahead and they went into the Kodesh Kadashim L'Shem Shamayim, Bikrovai Akadesh. They wanted to come close to Hashem. And They brought, and the Lashon HaPasuk is, an Eish Zara Asher Lo Tzivas Hashem. They brought an Eish Zara that Hashem did not command. And that's the fundamental difference. The difference between Avodah Zara, Rahman al-Islan, and Avodas Hashem is those 4 words. Kasher, Tziva, Moshe. Kasher, Tziva, Hashem es Moshe. That's it. That's 5 words. Kasher, Tziva, Hashem es Moshe. That's the difference. And sometimes we overthink. Sometimes we go too deep. Sometimes we have to keep it simple. And perhaps that's the message. Yes, we're going to repeat in Parshas Pekudei all of the details of the Binyan HaMishkan to make the following point. When Bezalel executed his command, when Moshe Rabbeinu saw to it that the will of Hashem was executed, so it was not done with any extras. There was no frills involved. It was the core and basic Tzivui Hashem. That's all that was done, no more and no less. And perhaps it's a fundamental lesson. We like to embellish. We like to, and sometimes we're supposed to. Hidur mitzvah is certainly laudable. Zrizim akdim the mitzvah, sure. But at the core, at its essence, the mitzvah is the mitzvah, and that's what we're supposed to gear ourselves towards. And that perhaps sometimes we overcomplicate things. And sometimes the idea of emunah pshuta, just fulfilling the basic will of Hashem, is really what it's all about. And perhaps that's the message of Parshas Pekudei, and what emerges when Klal Yisrael does that is the final pasuk in Sefer Shmos, which is the ultimate tikkun. The Shechina left Klal Yisrael when they built the Egel Hazav, and the final psukim in Parshas Pekudei at the end of Sefer Shmos, right before we say those magical words, at the end of a Sefer, we are told, Ki Anan Hashem al HaMishkan Yomam. The Anan Hashem was on the Mishkan during the day. Ve'eish ti alayla bo le'enei kol b'nei Yisrael b'chol ma'asehem. And then, of course, we close Chazak Chazak v'nischazek. And the message is, sometimes we have to get chizuk from the basics. And when we do so, the Shechina will rest on our homes, will rest on our shuls, will rest upon us, and we'll have that sense of Chazak Chazak v'nitchazek.